The coronavirus pandemic has caused chaos within the cruise industry, and buying travel insurance is likely to never be the same again. If you've got a cruise booked or you're thinking about booking a cruise, you probably have a lot of questions. You're wondering, is my current travel insurance going to cover my cruise? Can I cancel my travel insurance? Are we going to be able to get travel insurance for our next cruises? I've spent days talking to travel insurers, and in this video I'm going to let you know everything that you need to know about cruising and travel insurance. The first thing that we need to talk about is travel insurance that you got pre-coronavirus. If you took out a policy pre-coronavirus, mid-March-ish, for a cruise that's happening this year or next year, most insurers will cover you for coronavirus related cancellations and medical expenses. That said, there are a few things that you definitely need to take into account. If the government, the country where you live, has issued a no travel order, your travel insurance won't cover you. A lot of governments are issuing essential only travel orders, and in that situation, you may be able to travel if your travel is deemed essential, but you would have to prove it to the insurer why your travel was essential, and you'd probably have to get this pre-approved. So generally speaking, if the government of the country where you live says that you shouldn't travel and you do travel, your travel insurance will not cover you even if you had it pre-coronavirus. There are a couple of questions which it's important that you ask your insurer. The first one is, if there is an announcement by my government that I shouldn't travel and my cruise has not been cancelled, will I be covered? Generally speaking, yes, if the government says that you cannot travel, your travel insurance will cover you. The second thing to ask your insurer is, if the government hasn't said that we can't travel and your cruise has been cancelled, are you covered under the policy? Generally speaking, no. If the government hasn't said that you cannot travel, you're not really covered under your travel insurance. You may be if you have a policy that has travel protection interruption type of insurance, but generally speaking, it does depend a lot on what the government of the country is saying as to whether you can use your insurance to get your money back. That said, if you are in this situation and the government says you can travel but your cruise has been cancelled, the cruise line will give you a refund. The thing that makes it tricky is things like hotels, like delayed flights, like time off work. All of those things that go around the cruise, it's likely that your travel insurance won't cover you for that. All cruise lines should be offering you a cash refund if your cruise is cancelled by the cruise line. There are a few cruise lines and airlines and hotel brands who've tried to get around this and provide only vouchers, but generally speaking, at least here in the UK, you are entitled to a cash refund if you request it. There are rumours at the moment though that this could change, so if you're in this situation and you're wanting a cash refund, get your request in as quick as you can. If you do find that you're dealing with a cruise line that isn't offering a cash refund, the first thing to do would be to speak to that cruise line. And if that doesn't work, you could look at doing a chargeback on your credit card if you paid through a credit card. That's probably the next easiest way. If that fails, you can try and claim it on your insurance, but the insurance option is just harder than the other one, so do try the other options first. A lot of people do prefer cash refunds above vouchers, even though the vouchers can be worth more than the cash, because sometimes just having the money yourself means more to you than a potential cruise in the future. I know for me, I've cancelled a Carnival cruise and I requested a cash refund because I don't know when I'm going to be cruising with Carnival again. I don't know if I'm going to need that money, and if you're in that situation, definitely request a cash refund. Another thing to bear in mind is, just because you're covered by travel insurance, that doesn't mean that you're infinitely covered by your travel insurance. Travel insurance does run out at a certain date. When you pick a policy, you normally pick your start and end date. A lot of insurers will let you extend this if you need it extended. If you're stuck abroad and you're hospitalized, most insurers will let you extend and keep covering you, but not all of them necessarily will. So it's definitely worth checking your policy and your insurer. Some people have gone abroad, their travel insurance has run out, they've been quarantined there for whatever reason, and then at that point they're on their own, which is a really scary situation to be in. If you're at this point and you're thinking, I don't want to go on my cruise, there are a few things that you can do. So assuming that the government has said that there's a no travel order in place, even if your cruise is going ahead, you are covered by your travel insurance. If you want to cancel a cruise that's further into the future, we don't know what's going to happen with these travel orders and with the cruise lines, so you're generally not covered by your travel insurance to cancel a cruise that's, say, in a year's time or 6 months' time. One thing that Royal Caribbean is doing specifically is they're letting people move their cruise a year into the future. So something like that, a kind of move over offer, is something that you can definitely look into with your cruise lines. Almost all cruise lines would prefer you to move your cruise than cancel your cruise. If you do cancel your cruise just because you don't want to go, you're going to lose your deposit and you're going to be on your own with that. If you're not sure if you're going to want to cruise, I would strongly recommend that you play the waiting game and you just wait for the cruise line to cancel it. If the cruise line cancels it, you'll get 100% of your refund or you'll get onboard credit. If you cancel it yourself, you'll probably just lose your deposit. I have a cruise booked for September, a 90s versus noughties cruise. Apparently Americans don't say noughties, so if you're from America, let me know what you call the 2000s. But anyway, I've just paid off this cruise and I'm pretty sure it's not going to go ahead, but I'm kind of playing this waiting game. I would prefer to pay for the cruise, then them give me a refund or onboard credit rather than me cancel it now and lose my deposit. So that's where I've gone for that. It's totally up to you. For some people, it's completely worth it to lose the deposit. Some cruise lines have ridiculously low deposits. Sometimes it's just £1. If you've paid £1, probably just lose that, that's fine. There are some circumstances though where you can cancel a cruise in the future that hasn't been cancelled and there's no government order that says you shouldn't travel, and that is if you're somebody who is particularly vulnerable. If you're someone who has a vulnerable characteristic, like you're over 70 or you have certain medical problems, a lot of travel insurers at the moment are being quite nice and they're saying, you know, you can cancel it and we will cover it. This is kind of looked at on a case-by-case basis. If you're someone who's in this situation, you would have to submit your case to the travel insurer, and if they think, you know, it's reasonable that you shouldn't travel, they'll probably cover you under the policy. This does work two ways though. If you're somebody who is classed as vulnerable and you do decide to travel anyway, you're probably not covered under your insurance and it probably invalidates the entire policy. That's a very, very risky move. Do not cruise without travel insurance. It is not worth it. So if you are someone who's classed as vulnerable, just be extra careful. Here in Britain, the British Association of Travel Agents has said that if your cruise has significantly changed, say you booked a cruise from Rome and it was supposed to be all Italian ports, they moved the start, they changed the ports, they changed the ship, or something dramatic like that, the Association of Travel Agents says that you should be able to get a refund in this situation. It does depend, of course, on the cruise line, but if you are facing taking a cruise that you just didn't book, it's definitely worth speaking to the cruise line or your travel insurance if you get that far. If you have a travel insurance policy that you're not going to use, don't panic. I've seen so many people who've just said to me, well, I've wasted $200. That's not the case. I know loads of people who've managed to get cash back from their travel insurer. Some people are getting a kind of pro rata payment. So if you've got an annual policy and you're not using 6 months of it, a lot of insurers will give you back that 6 months. If you've booked for a specific trip that's no longer going ahead, a lot of insurers will give you that money back. I have to just say though, a word of warning, if you are planning on cancelling an annual policy, you're going to lose the cover that you do have there. So if you've booked an annual policy pre-coronavirus that covers coronavirus related cancellations and you cancel it, you're never going to be able to get that back. So if there is any doubt in your mind that you're going to want to travel soon, don't take a refund. But if you know you're definitely not going anywhere, you're definitely not going on this trip, you can get significant amounts of money back. So definitely just send a message to your insurer. They're getting loads of these at the moment, and most insurers have a policy just to deal with this. They might just do a flat pro rata amount back, or they might give you all your money back. It's definitely worth an email, so do that if you're not going to travel. Just a quick note here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you have the notifications turned on. I bring you a new video every single week and I would not like you to miss it. So what happens if you're in the situation where now you've booked a cruise and you need to book travel insurance? I've seen a lot of people online who are panicking that they'll never be able to cruise again because they'll never be covered for coronavirus related things on travel insurance. This is partly true and partly not true. When coronavirus happened, 30 of the biggest insurers here in the UK stopped selling travel insurance completely because they just had no idea what was going on, and it's much easier for them just to say a blanket no rather than trying to work out what to sell and what to include. Many of these insurers have come back and now they're offering travel insurance again. That said, there's definitely a cut down amount of travel insurance, so there's less choice for you. Generally speaking, if you book a policy right now for a cruise that's in the future, you're not going to be covered for anything related to coronavirus cancellations. So if you need some extra time off work, you get stuck in a hotel, your flights are delayed, things like that are not going to be covered. But I think it's very important to note that if you need medical care, emergency medical care, and you need to be taken home, those things are covered by almost all policies. I see a lot of misinformation online where people are thinking, I can't get stuck with these huge medical bills, and that's just not the case for the majority of policies. Of course, it definitely is worth checking with your insurer and your policy, but everyone that I spoke to while researching this video said that you'd still be covered for emergency medical care. If you have an annual policy that's set to renew, money saving expert here in the UK has said that you should be able to get the same level of cover as you had before. So if you had a policy before that you bought pre-coronavirus that included coronavirus cancellations and you want to renew it, even though coronavirus is now a known thing, they should include the cover that you had before. If they don't, apparently you can go to the Financial Ombudsman and you can say that they're not following industry practice. This is specific to the UK, but I imagine that it is the same across the world. Don't hold me to that one though, but don't assume that just because you're renewing an annual policy that they're going to automatically take out the coronavirus portion. They originally were, but in the last week or so, they've changed this and it seems like policies are including the same cover as they had before. If you are taking out a completely new policy though, because coronavirus is a known event, you're not going to have any of that cancellation cover because they don't cover known events. So this leaves us with a couple of ways that you can get insurance for your cruise in the future. The first way is to renew an annual policy, and in theory, the insurer should include the same cover as they had before. The second way is to book a policy that includes cancel for any reason cover. I would strongly recommend against this because these are incredibly expensive policies and they're very hard to find at the moment. You can still find them, but you're likely to pay 10 or 15% of your fare just in insurance, which to me makes me feel a bit sick. One thing that I am doing though is I'm looking at booking cruises from my local cruise port. By doing that, I don't have to worry about flights, I don't have to worry about hotels, and if the cruise is cancelled by the cruise line, I will get a refund, and if not, I will go on the cruise. That's kind of my thinking at the moment. One thing that it could be worth looking at now is when you're booking a new policy, look for something called scheduled airline failure insurance. This is something that I've never really thought about before, but a lot of airlines are really struggling at the moment. And what this cover does is it means if your airline that you're due to fly with goes bust, you're covered for that. That could be very valuable in the next year or so. So if you are booking a new policy, just take a second and just look for that. There are some insurers and companies that very specifically exclude coronavirus related things from their terms and conditions. These are expected to be loosened as time goes on, but at the moment, the insurer MedJet says, MedJet cannot transport a member actively infected with COVID-19. We can, however, transport for post-infection complications and continued hospitalization. So what that means is they will not be transporting anyone with coronavirus, but they'll still look after you in terms of emergency medical care, which seems to be how most insurers are going. So if you took out a policy pre-coronavirus, you're likely to be covered for cancellation. It does depend a lot on the government and the cruise line and various other things, but generally speaking, you're likely to be covered for cancellation and emergency medical care. If you took out a policy after coronavirus, you're likely to be covered for emergency medical care and getting you back home if you need it, but you're not going to have any cover when it comes to cancellations and costs that may be incurred to do with coronavirus. We do expect this to change as time goes on, and what I would recommend for right now is if you have an annual policy, renew it. It's the easiest way and it's going to give you the most amount of cover that you can get. If you have a cruise booked for the future and you haven't got an annual policy, get insurance. Insurance does a lot more than just coronavirus related cancellations. You need travel insurance when you cruise. And if you can, pick a cruise that goes from a home port so that you don't have to worry about things like hotels and flights. That will make it so much easier. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in this next video, which is all about the future of cruising.